Good afternoon. So today we are going to continue with the definitions, start from where we've left yesterday. But before I start, I would just like to ask, do you have any doubts, any questions in whatever we have done yesterday, whatever we understood yesterday? Any doubts? Whether it is in definitions or any other question you would have. We'll start in 2 minutes. Till then, if you have any doubts, I'm open to take your questions. Okay, so I guess you all don't have any doubts. So let's start with today's session. Let's start with what we are going to do today. So yesterday we've discussed a few things. So yesterday we were discussing about what is law, and we've understood why are we studying Companies Act, what is the relevance of studying Companies Act. And apart from it, we also started with section 1, wherein we have understood what is the title of the act, its extent, its applicability, and from when did it commence. And about the applicability of the act and the applicability under section 1 subsection 4, we have understood to which different types of companies is this act applicable, and we've also understood situations wherein the provisions of the act wherein whenever there's an inconsistency between the provisions of Companies Act and the specific acts which govern certain types of organization. In such a situation, the specific act which governs such type of organizations would apply in case of banking company, insurance company, and electricity companies. And after that, we started with section 2, wherein the first definition which we have understood was the definition of company. अभी कंपनीज एक्ट पढ़ रहे हैं तो सबसे पहले कंपनी का ही डेफिनेशन देखेंगे, राइट? सो वी स्टार्टेड विद द डेफिनेशन ऑफ कंपनी. वी हैव अंडरस्टूड that company means a company incorporated under this act, that is the Companies Act 2013 or any other previous company law. उसके बाद में हमने ये भी समझा है कि कंपनी में फॉरेन कंपनी इंक्लूड नहीं होती है. मतलब अगर हम सिर्फ द टर्म कंपनी देखेंगे इन द कंपनीज एक्ट तो उसमें फॉरेन कंपनी इंक्लूडेड नहीं है. पर उसके बाद में हमने देखा डेफिनेशन ऑफ बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट, जहां पे हमने ये देखा दैट बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट स्पेसिफिकली includes a company which is incorporated outside India, and since a body corporate includes a company which is incorporated outside India, उसमें फॉरेन कंपनी भी इंक्लूड हो जाता है. सो these were the two basic definitions which we understood. एंड मैंने आपको ये भी बोला था कि ये दो डेफिनेशंस याद रखना, इसी पॉइंट पे आगे जाके आप लोग कंफ्यूज होने वाले. कहाँ कंफ्यूज होने वाले हो, आज की क्लास में हम उस बारे में बात करेंगे. ओके, उसके बाद में वी स्टार्टेड विद टाइप्स ऑफ कंपनीज वेयरइन वी अंडरस्टूड व्हाट इज अ कंपनी लिमिटेड बाय शेयर्स, कंपनी लिमिटेड बाय गारंटी एंड एन अनलिमिटेड कंपनी. तो ये तीनों टाइप्स के कंपनीज क्या होते हैं, कैसे क्या होते हैं, ये हमने समझा. एंड वी हैव आल्सो गॉन थ्रू द डेफिनेशंस, post which we started with what is a private company and public company. तो प्राइवेट कंपनी क्या है और पब्लिक कंपनी क्या है, ये भी हमने कवर किया था in yesterday's class. Now today let's start with another type of company, and the type of company which we are going to understand about today is a small company. So small company क्या होता है, let's understand. Let's start with small company today. Let me share my screen. And post this, I'll also give you a few questions on small company, which you will solve. Okay, so starting with what is a small company? So small company is nothing but a company जिसका size छोटा है. अभी how are we going to identify whether a company is a small company or not? कैसे आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे हम लोग कि एक कंपनी को स्मॉल कंपनी बोलना चाहिए या नहीं बोलना चाहिए? तो उसके लिए कंपनीज एक्ट में the threshold limits prescribed है. Now the threshold limits जो prescribed है वो है with respect to the paid up capital, and with respect to the turnover of the company. So when we talk of a small company एक ऐसी कंपनी है जहां पे पेड अप शेयर कैपिटल जो है वो एक सर्टेन लिमिट के ऊपर नहीं जाता है और टर्नओवर जो है वो एक सर्टेन लिमिट के ऊपर नहीं जाता है. अभी वो लिमिट जो स्पेसिफाइड है वो क्या है, लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड. So small company is a company basically where the paid up capital does not exceed rupees 2 crores. And where the turnover कौन से साल का देखेंगे? Turnover of the immediately preceding financial year. Turnover of the immediately preceding financial year does not exceed rupees 20 crore. So उस कंपनी को स्मॉल कंपनी बोला जाएगा जिनका पेड अप कैपिटल 2 करोड़ से कम है या और जिनका टर्नओवर जो है वो 20 करोड़ से कम है. एंड दीज आर एंड कंडीशंस, which means both the conditions have to be complied with together and only then we can call a company a small company. So स्मॉल कंपनी किसको बोलते हैं? स्मॉल कंपनी उस कंपनी को बोलेंगे जिनका पेड अप कैपिटल 2 करोड़ से ज्यादा नहीं है और जिनका टर्नओवर जो है वो 20 करोड़ से ज्यादा नहीं है. So a small company is a company whose paid up share capital does not exceed 2 crores and whose turnover in the immediately preceding financial year does not exceed 20 crore. Which means, say for example, for the year 22-23, for the financial year 22-23, we are ascertaining if a company is a small company or not. How are we going to do it? So for the financial year 22-23 हमको देखना है कि एक कंपनी स्मॉल कंपनी है या नहीं. तो उसके लिए हम क्या देखेंगे? दो चीजें. First is the paid up capital. Second is turnover. So पहले हम देखेंगे पेड अप कैपिटल क्या है कंपनी का और फिर हम टर्नओवर का अमाउंट भी चेक करेंगे. नाउ पेड अप कैपिटल, as on which date? There's no date which has been specified for the paid up capital, and also we don't have to look at the paid up capital of the immediately preceding financial year. जिस दिन आप ascertain कर रहे हो whether a company is a small company or not, उस दिन जो paid up capital है, we'll have a look at the amount of that paid up capital. However, when we are talking about the turnover, जब हम turnover को ascertain कर रहे हैं, तो we will look at the turnover of the previous financial year, immediately preceding financial year. उस financial year में जो turnover होगा, अगर वो 20 करोड़ से कम है, तो उस situation में we'll call that company a small company. So say financial year 22-23 के लिए if we are ascertaining whether a company is a small company or not, so we'll have to look at the turnover of the financial year 2021-22. तो इस financial year का turnover हम देखेंगे in order to ascertain whether a company is a small company or not in the financial year 22-23. Is this clear? इतना समझ में आया आप लोगों को? Yes. Okay. So what did we understand till now about a small company? Small company is basically a company whose paid up share capital does not exceed 2 crore and whose turnover does not exceed rupees 20 crore. And small companies in the nature of a private company only. Private company को ही small company बोला जाता है, public company को small company नहीं बोलते. Now, what is the reason public company को small company नहीं बोलते? The reason is very simple. The definition of a small company, it starts with the word a company other than a public company, which means a public company can never be treated as a small company. A public company can never be called as a small company. And this is a very important point. This point can be touched upon in MCQ type of questions. So public company को कभी भी हम small company नहीं बोलेंगे, even if the paid up capital and turnover of the public company is well within the limit. We will not call that company a small company. अगर वो लिमिट के अंदर भी है तो भी हम उस कंपनी को स्मॉल कंपनी नहीं बोलेंगे. एंड अपार्ट फ्रॉम इट, ये जो डेफिनेशन है स्मॉल कंपनी का, इट इज नॉट एप्लीकेबल इन सर्टेन सिचुएशंस. नाउ व्हाट आर द केसेस wherein the definition would not be applied, definition of small company will not be applicable? Let's understand. So कौन सी दूसरी कंपनीज है जिनको हम स्मॉल कंपनी नहीं बोलेंगे? एक है होल्डिंग कंपनी और सब्सिडरी कंपनी. सो एक होल्डिंग कंपनी और सब्सिडरी कंपनी को स्मॉल कंपनी टर्म नहीं करेंगे, इवन इफ इट इज अ प्राइवेट कंपनी. इवन इफ द होल्डिंग कंपनी और द सब्सिडरी कंपनी, दे आर प्राइवेट कंपनी, but and their paid up capital and turnover are also well within the limit, but still we will not term them as small company since they are either holding company or subsidiary company. इसके अलावा एक सेक्शन 8 कंपनी जो है उसको भी हम small company नहीं बोल सकते. So section 8 company again is cannot be termed as a small company, and apart from it, any other company organization which has been notified by the central government will also not be treated as a small company. So this was with respect to a small company. Small company किसको बोलते हैं और small company के threshold limits क्या है, and in which situations, what are the exceptions from the definition of a small company. So let's now have a look at the definition of small company. So section 2 clause 85 defines a small company. It means a company other than a public company. Now this term, this line in the definition plays a very significant role, because क्या होता है ना, बहुत सी बार we do not read the definition properly, and since we are not reading the definition properly, ये वाला point miss हो जाता है. और एग्जाम में जब आपके पास एक क्वेश्चन आता है, what you do is we only blindly look at the threshold limits. Threshold limit के अंदर है तो हाँ small company है. We do not look at the name of the company. अरे भाई पब्लिक कंपनी है और उसका थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट अगर थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट के अंदर भी है, पेड अप कैपिटल और टर्नओवर, doesn't matter. It will be a public company. You cannot call it a small company at all. So you have to be very careful when you're reading a question, and that's the reason why ये वाला point मैं आपसे highlight करवा रही हूँ, because a small company is a company other than a public company. It is not a public company cannot be termed as a small company. Where paid up share capital of which does not exceed, it is 2 crores, not 50 lakhs, it is 2 crores. And the turnover of which as per the immediately preceding financial year does not exceed 20 crore rupees. So initially जब act नया आया था, the limit prescribed was 50 lakhs and 2 crores, but now the limit has been changed. There's a revision in the limit, wherein the paid up share capital, the amount specified for paid up share capital is 2 crores, and the amount which is being specified for the turnover is 20 crores. And this limit can also be increased by the government by issuing a notification, just like they did from 50 lakhs to 2 crores. So the higher amount for paid up share capital is 10 crore rupees, and the higher amount for turnover is 100 crore rupees. So this amount of 2 crores and 20 crores can be increased to a higher amount as well. But कितने हाई अमाउंट तक? पेड अप शेयर कैपिटल के लिए द हायर अमाउंट कुड बी up to 10 crore. However, for turnover, the higher amount could be up to 100 crore. So the limit which you have to remember for examination purposes is 2 crores and 20 crores. उससे ज़्यादा नहीं. However, provided that nothing in this clause shall apply to, matlab this definition of small company shall not apply to a holding company or a subsidiary company registered under section 8, or a company or body corporate which is governed by any special act. So in 3 situations में small company का definition जो है वो apply नहीं होगा. कौन से 3 situations? One is in case of a holding company and a subsidiary company. Second is in case of a company which is a section 8 company, and third is a company or a body corporate which has been incorporated under section under any special act. In 3 situations में, even if the threshold limits are met, even if the paid up share capital and the turnover, they are well within the threshold limits, these companies will not be treated as small companies. इतना clear है? Have you all understood this much? Okay. So now before we move ahead, let me give you a few questions. मतलब थोड़े बहुत scenarios देखेंगे just to so that I understand what is your level of understanding of a small company. So yes, let's start. I'll give you some 4-5 scenarios जिसका आंसर आप लोग मुझे दोगे. And I am not going to answer this. Okay, so these are 5 situations, and now I've given you the names of the companies, the amount of the paid up capital, and turnover of the immediately preceding financial year. You have to tell me कौन से situation में company small company है. Basically, you have to ascertain whether it is a small company or not. Independently in all these 5 situations. Now, last situation में there is one additional information. This is a subsidiary company. So I give you 2 minutes. Jaldi se answer my question, and also please do make a note of this thing. Okay, so I have got the answers और काफी fast आप लोगों ने answer कर दिया. Very nice. So Arya says 1 and 2 are small companies. Abhi says 3 is also a small company. 5 is not a small company as it is subsidy. Okay. Okay, let's analyze the situation and let's see if your answers are correct or not. So let's talk about XYZ Private Limited. It is a private company. Public company नहीं है तो small company का definition तो applicable होगा. So the paid up capital is 1 crore. 2 crore से कम है? Yes है. Turnover is 10 crores. 20 crore से कम है? हाँ है. तो मतलब ये एक small company है. Second company है ABC Private Limited. Paid up capital 2 crores. टर्नओवर 20 करोड़. अरे यहाँ पे तो पेड अप कैपिटल 2 करोड़ है और टर्नओवर 20 करोड़ है. सो ये लिमिट के ऊपर नहीं जा रहा है क्या? पेड अप कैपिटल का लिमिट क्या है? 2 करोड़, नॉट एक्सीडिंग 2 करोड़, व्हिच मींस इफ इट इज अप टू रुपीज 2 करोड़ तब तक कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. तो मतलब दोनों जो अमाउंट्स है वो इंक्लूसिव है. नॉट एक्सीडिंग 2 करोड़, नॉट एक्सीडिंग 20 करोड़ मींस if it is up to 2 crores or up to 20 crores it is okay. तो ये भी स्मॉल कंपनी है. अभी टोल्ड अभी लिमिटेड इज अ स्मॉल कंपनी एज वेल, बट अभी यहाँ पे लिमिटेड वर्ड है. एंड इफ यू रिमेंबर द नोमेनक्लेचर ऑफ कंपनीज, इसका मतलब ये है कि अभी लिमिटेड इज अ पब्लिक कंपनी. एंड अ पब्लिक कंपनी को तो स्मॉल कंपनी हम बोल ही नहीं सकते. सो थर्ड केस में दिस इज नॉट अ स्मॉल कंपनी. टॉकिंग ऑफ फोर्थ सिचुएशन आप दोनों ने ही इसका आंसर नहीं किया है. सो आई probably think because you got confused ये foundation word देख के. So this is basically a Section 8 company. And Section 8 company is also not not a small company, cannot be the definition of small company doesn't apply to a Section 8 company as well. And talking of last point, so Abhi has correctly answered the last point. This is also not a small company because it is a subsidiary company. So I hope everything's clear till now about small companies. Clear है small companies के बारे में? Okay. So let's move. I believe you all have made note of this particular table so that आगे कभी भी confusion ना हो and आप लोगों ने reasons भी लिख लिए होंगे. So if you're not answering me, I'll assume that you have made a note of this and I am free to move ahead. Okay, so I guess आप लोगों ने लिख लिया. Let's move on to the other type of company. We'll now have a look at the definition of a listed company. लिस्टेड कंपनी क्या होता है? कल मैंने थोड़ा सा हिंट दिया था अबाउट अ लिस्टेड कंपनी. लिस्टेड कंपनी क्या होती है? कल मैंने बताया था ये वाला पॉइंट. अगर आप लोगों ने सुना होगा अच्छे से तो आपको पता होगा. ओके, सो ठीक है. Listed company is basically a company which is listed on a recognized stock exchange. So a company which is listed on a recognized stock exchange is referred to as a listed company. Let's have a look at the definition. So there was a recent amendment in the definition of listed company, and that's the reason why we are looking at the definition. So it means a company which has any of its securities listed on a recognized stock exchange. So यहाँ पे word क्या use किया है? Any of its securities. Now when we look at this word any of its securities, the term securities, it includes both shares as well as debentures. Okay, So a listed company, it means a company which has any of its securities, whether it is shares or debentures, they are listed on a recognized stock exchange, provided that such class of companies which have listed or intend to list such class of securities which are prescribed in consultation with SEBI shall not be considered as listed company. There is rule 2A, which has provided a list of companies which have either listed or they are in the process of listing their securities, but वो वाली companies को हम listed companies नहीं मानेंगे. अभी rule 2A क्या बताता है? Let's understand. So rule 2A of companies specification of definition detail provides for companies not to be considered as listed companies. So rule 2A has given us what are the situations wherein a company will not be considered as a listed company. So kaun si situations hai? The first one is public company which have not listed their equity shares on recognized stock exchange but have listed their non-convertible debt securities, that is NCDs, non-convertible debentures, or non-convertible redeemable preference shares issued on private placement basis, or both one and two above. So public company hai, but this public company has not listed equity shares on the stock exchange. List क्या किया है? They have either listed non-convertible debentures or they have listed their preference shares. और कौन से preference shares? Non-convertible redeemable preference shares. So यहाँ पे the company has listed some of its securities, but what are the securities which have been listed? It is either non-convertible debentures or it is non-convertible redeemable preference shares. इक्विटी शेयर्स लिस्ट नहीं किया, बट ये वाली सिक्योरिटीज लिस्ट की है, तो हम उस टाइप की पब्लिक कंपनी को लिस्टेड कंपनी नहीं मानेंगे. दो इट्स डिबेंचर्स आर लिस्टेड, दो इट्स नॉन कन्वर्टेबल डिबेंचर्स आर लिस्टेड, दो इट्स non-convertible preference shares are listed, we will not consider such type of company as a listed company because ये specifically rules में prescribe किया गया. What is the other type of company? Let's understand. The other is private companies which have listed their non-convertible debt securities on private placement basis on recognized stock exchanges. So usually ये चीज रहता है सबके दिमाग में that private companies they cannot list their shares, but private companies they can definitely list their non-convertible debentures on the stock exchange. So अगर एक private company ने अपने नॉन कन्वर्टेबल डेट सिक्योरिटीज को रिकॉग्नाइज्ड स्टॉक एक्सचेंज पे लिस्ट किया है, तो उस प्राइवेट कंपनी को हम लिस्टेड कंपनी नहीं मानेंगे. विल नॉट रेफर टू दैट प्राइवेट कंपनी एज अ लिस्टेड कंपनी. देन public companies which have not listed their equity shares on recognized stock exchange but whose equity shares are listed on stock exchange in jurisdiction which has been specified under section 23 subsection 3 of that. So they have not listed their equity shares on recognized stock exchange but किसी ऐसे stock exchange पर list किया है which has been specified under section 23 subsection 3. So what is a listed company? A company where let's simplify the definition a bit. Definition listed company का बहुत simple है. वो यही बोलता है that a company which has listed any of its securities. Where on a recognized stock exchange. However, it does not include certain class of companies which have either listed or are in the process of listing. their securities on stock exchange, but these prescribed classes of companies, they'll not be treated as listed companies. अब वो prescribed class कौन सा है? Prescribed class first है public company जिसके equity shares listed नहीं है, but non convertible debentures या फिर non convertible redeemable preference shares listed है, या फिर दोनों ही listed है. सेकेंड सिचुएशन था प्राइवेट कंपनी जिसके नॉन कन्वर्टेबल डेट सिक्योरिटीज लिस्टेड है, एंड थर्ड सिचुएशन था पब्लिक कंपनी जिसके equity shares recognized stock exchange पे listed नहीं है, but they are listed on a stock exchange whose jurisdiction has been specified under section 23 subsection 3. So ये कुछ specific types of companies है जिनके कुछ securities listed है, but उसके बावजूद हम उनको listed company नहीं मानेंगे. So that was the definition of listed company. An unlisted company is basically a company which is not a listed company, is an unlisted company. So are you all clear with what is a listed company? Any questions? If you do not answer, how will I understand आप लोगों को समझ में आ रहा है कि नहीं आ रहा है? So please answer करिए. Okay. Okay, so let's now move on to the other definitions. तो कल से हम फॉरेन कंपनी के बारे में बहुत बातें कर रहे हैं, राइट? सो चलिए फॉरेन कंपनी का डेफिनेशन देखते हैं. Section 2 clause 42 defines a foreign company, and it says foreign company means any company or body corporate. Body corporate में क्या क्या included होता है? Company, foreign company, LLP, foreign LLP. Body corporate which is incorporated outside India. So a company or a body corporate which is incorporated outside India, which has a place of business in India, whether by itself or through an agent, physically or through electronic mode. So Domino's का example लिया था हमने कल. उसके अलावा there are different foreign companies which have their existence here in India. They do carry on business here in India. It can either they are physically present, they have a place of business, or it can be through an agent, and conducts any business activity in India in any other manner. So क्या है? तीन चीजें. When we talk of foreign company, when we talk of a foreign company, it is a company which is incorporated outside India. It is a company which is incorporated outside India, but it has a place of business in India. मतलब इंडिया में प्लेस ऑफ बिजनेस है, और सिर्फ एक प्लेस ऑफ बिजनेस ही नहीं है, इट इज ऑल्सो कंडक्टिंग बिजनेस एक्टिविटी इन इंडिया. They have a place of business and they also conduct any business activity in India. So those type of companies are termed as foreign companies. It is either a company or a body corporate which are incorporated outside India, but which have a place of business in India and also conduct business activity in India. So such type of companies are referred to as foreign companies. Let's now have a look at the definition of a government company. What is a government company? I'm sure ये आप लोगों को पता होगा. Government company is a company basically जहाँ पे 51% or more of the total. Am I audible? Sorry, there was some problem with the mic. Yeah. So a government company is a company wherein 51% or more of the paid up share capital is held partly by central government or partly by state government, या फिर entirely by central government या फिर entirely by state government. तो या तो 51% से ज्यादा जो कैपिटल है वो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट होल्ड कर रही है या फिर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट होल्ड कर रही है या फिर पार्टली सेंटर और स्टेट दोनों होल्ड कर रहा है, तो उस टाइप के कंपनी को हम बोलते हैं अ गवर्नमेंट कंपनी. So let's have a look at the definition. Government company means a company in which not less than 51% मतलब at least 51% or 51% or more of the paid up share capital, it is not total voting power here, it is paid up share capital, is held by the central government or by the state government or governments, or partly by the central government and partly by one or more state government. And it includes a company which is a subsidiary company of a government company. Matlab, say for example, there's a government company and इस government company का एक subsidiary company है. But this company is a non-government company. But क्योंकि ये subsidiary company एक गवर्नमेंट कंपनी का सब्सिडरी कंपनी है, इसीलिए इस सब्सिडरी कंपनी को भी गवर्नमेंट कंपनी माना जाएगा. Okay, so a company which is subsidiary of a government company will also be treated as a government company, similar to a private or public का subsidiary relation जो होता है. A private company which is a subsidiary of public company will be deemed to be a public company. So similarly here as well, a company which is subsidiary of a government company shall also be treated as a government company. And however, there's an explanation. Explanation क्या बोलता है? The paid up share capital shall be construed as total voting power where shares with differential voting rights have been issued. So equity shares जो होते हैं वो two types के होते हैं. One is equity shares with normal voting rights. The other is equity shares with differential voting rights, जिनको हम DVR बोलते हैं. So DVRs में the voting rights differ. So in a situation, a company has issued equity shares with differential voting right. तो जब ये जो paid up capital है, उसको paid up capital ना assume करके it shall be read as total voting power. Now, how much difference will it make or how will it be different? We'll understand when we go to the definition of holding company and subsidiary company. तो अभी तक हमने तीन definitions देखे. One is small company, the other was foreign company, and उसके बाद हमने देखा है government company का definition. Any doubts so far? Any questions or any doubts so far? देखो, जब तक आप लोग रिप्लाई नहीं करोगे, आई विल नॉट बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि आप लोगों को समझ में कितना आ रहा है, what is your level of understanding, and also if you are not answering, you will not be able to retain things. See, what happens is when you participate in the discussion which is going on in a live class, you will remember things. Now most of the times ये जो examples हम लोग use करते हैं, उस example के basis पे ही आपको अपने exam में answer याद आता है या provision याद आता है. Now this is something which has happened with me personally, wherein मुझे examples याद रहते थे जो मेरी teachers ने लिए होते थे class में, and because of the examples I could retain the concepts and retain the level of understanding of the provisions with me. So, and that will only happen when you interact and when you answer to the questions I'm asking. So have you understood अभी तक जो भी सीखा, जो भी definitions किए, या is there any doubt? क्लियर है? ओके, तो अगर मैं आपको कोई क्वेश्चन दूं अभी, तो आप लोग उसको सॉल्व करोगे? It's too early for a question, so ठीक है, I'll give a question. Don't be under an impression कि मैं कोई question नहीं solve कर पाऊंगी. We will solve a question, but before going towards a question, let's have a look at other few definitions as well. Abhi, we'll talk of a holding company, subsidiary company, and associate company. तो पहले होल्डिंग और सब्सिडी का डेफिनेशन करेंगे, उसके बाद एसोसिएट कंपनी के डेफिनेशन पे जाएंगे. A holding company and a subsidiary company. What is a holding company and what is a subsidiary company? I am sure you have studied these definitions at your foundation level. Types of companies जब आपने पढ़ा है foundation पे, तो आपको ये भी पता होगा holding company और subsidiary company क्या होता है. So I want you to give me your answer for what is a holding company or what is a subsidiary company. See, participate. Till the time I'm not getting answer to this question, I'm not moving ahead, and I'm very serious about this. So I'm waiting for your answer. मैं वेट कर रही हूँ आंसर का. अच्छा, so अभी says more than 50% control. तो more than 50% कंट्रोल किसका होता है? सब्सिडरी का होता है, होल्डिंग का होता है? होल्डिंग का सब्सिडरी में होता है या सब्सिडरी का होल्डिंग में होता है? More than 50% control is fine, but किसका होता है? होल्डिंग का. ओके. सो होल्डिंग और सब्सिडी रिलेशनशिप कैसे एस्टेब्लिश होता है? व्हेन डू वी से देयर इज अ होल्डिंग सब्सिडी रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन कंपनीज और टू कंपनीज आर होल्डिंग इन सब्सिडी कंपनीज? लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड. सो दो सिचुएशंस होते हैं, दो क्राइटेरियाज हैं, जो जिनमें से अगर कोई भी एक क्राइटेरिया सेटिस्फाई हो जाता है तो वी से दैट देयर इज अ होल्डिंग सब्सिडी relationship between these companies. Now, what are the criteria? The first criteria is wherein one company, it controls the composition of board of directors. ठीक है, wherein one company is controlling the composition of board of directors in the other company. Controlling composition means what? Controlling composition का मतलब होता है power to appoint or remove majority of directors in the company. Okay, so when we talk of establishing holding subsidiary relation, तो first situation जहाँ पे हम बोल सकते हैं कि holding subsidiary relationship है इन companies में, तो first situation क्या होता है? wherein एक company जो है वो दूसरे company में board of directors का composition control कर रही है. board of directors का composition मतलब क्या? एक कंपनी दूसरे कंपनी में मेजॉरिटी ऑफ बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स को अपॉइंट कर रही है, या पावर टू रिमूव है, या फिर इशू डायरेक्शंस है. So if one company controls the composition of board of directors in the other company, then we say that there's a holding subsidiary relationship between these companies. Say for example, there are two companies, Reliance Industries Limited और से एक दूसरी कंपनी है Infosys Limited. This is not a real situation. This is only for example. So Reliance Industries Limited और Infosys Limited ये दो companies हैं. अभी से Infosys में ना total 14 directors हैं. There are 14 directors in the board of directors of Infosys. Now out of these 14 directors, 10 directors have been appointed by Reliance. So यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? Out of 14 directors, 10 directors have been appointed by Reliance Industries Limited, which means what? Here, this company has the power to appoint majority of directors here in Infosys. It is appointing majority of directors in Infosys. So which means what? Which means that Reliance Industries Limited is controlling the composition of board of directors of Infosys Limited. So in such a situation, हम क्या बोलेंगे? ये होल्डिंग कंपनी हो गया और ये सब्सिडरी कंपनी हो गया. ठीक है? So wherein one company it controls the composition of board of directors in the other company, we say that a holding subsidiary relationship has been established. The company which is controlling the composition will be termed as the holding company, and the company where the board of directors composition is being controlled will be the subsidiary company. Clear है ये point clear है क्या? Is this point clear? Okay. Moving on to the second situation where we say one company is controlling the composition of the other company. It is, where we say that there's holding subsidiary relationship between the companies. Where the other company, it exercises control over more than 50% of the total voting power. Either on its own or along with one or more of its subsidiary companies. इसका मतलब क्या है? टोटल वोटिंग पावर कैसे असरटेन किया जाता है? सो टोटल वोटिंग पावर असरटेन करने के लिए we'll have to look at the shares which have been allotted by the company and which carry voting rights. अभी टू टाइप्स के शेयर्स होते हैं, ऑल ऑफ अस नो, प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स एंड इक्विटी शेयर्स. बट इक्विटी शेयर्स जो होते हैं ना, इनमें भी दो डिविजन होते हैं. वन इज विथ नॉर्मल वोटिंग राइट्स एंड द अदर इज DVR. So equity shares के भी दो टाइप्स होते हैं, with normal voting rights and with differential voting rights. And this is where the difference arises. Normal voting right मतलब क्या? Normal voting right मतलब one share is equal to one vote. ठीक है? But differential voting right में क्या होता है? Differential voting right में ना, the shareholder is giving upon a portion of their vote. मतलब क्या? मेरे पास अगर एक शेयर है तो मेरे पास एक वोट है, वो हो गया नॉर्मल वोटिंग राइट, नॉर्मल सिचुएशन. बट अगर मैं DVRs खरीद रही हूँ तो यहाँ पे वन शेयर विल नॉट बी इक्वल टू वन वोट. वन वोट से कम होगा. से फॉर एग्जाम्पल 1/10 वोट है. मतलब क्या? पहले एक शेयर था तो एक वोट, और अभी एक शेयर है तो सिर्फ 1/10 वोट. इसका मतलब क्या? अगर अभी मेरे पास 10 शेयर्स होंगे तो मेरे पास एक वोट होगा. समझ में आ रहा है? इक्विटी शेयर्स विद डिफरेंशियल वोटिंग राइट्स में क्या हो रहा है? देयर इज अ डिफरेंस इन द वोटिंग राइट देन व्हाट अ नॉर्मल शेयर होल्डर हैज. नॉर्मल शेयर अगर इशू हो रहा है, सो इन दैट सिचुएशन वन शेयर कैरीज वन वोट. हाउएवर, in case of DVRs, one share is not equal to one vote, rather से 1/10 वोट है. इट मे डिपेंड फ्रॉम कंपनी टू कंपनी कि वो लोग कितना डिफर कर रहे हैं, राइट. सो यहाँ पे क्या हो गया, मेरा शेयर का जो वोटिंग पावर है वो कम हो गया डिफरेंशियल वोटिंग राइट में, बिकॉज देयर इज अ डिफरेंस. और बिकॉज देयर इज अ डिफरेंस, अभी 1 शेयर है अगर मेरे पास, तो उसका वोट सिर्फ 1/10 ही माना जाएगा. मतलब पहले 1 शेयर इज इक्वल टू 1 वोट था, बट अभी 10 शेयर इक्वल टू 1 वोट हो गया, बिकॉज 1 शेयर कैरीज ओनली 1/10 वोट. सो देयर इज अ डिफरेंस इन द वोटिंग राइट्स, एंड दैट्स वेयर कैलकुलेशन ऑफ टोटल वोटिंग पावर बिकम्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. अगर एक कंपनी ने डीवीआर इशू किए हैं, तो उस सिचुएशन में वोटिंग पावर कैलकुलेट करना विल बी डिफरेंट. नॉर्मली इस सिचुएशन में क्या होता है, सिर्फ इक्विटी शेयर्स को हम काउंट करते हैं इन ऑर्डर टू असर्टेन द वोटिंग पावर. बट अगर डीवीआर भी इशू किए हैं, तो फिर उस सिचुएशन में वोटिंग पावर का कैलकुलेशन विल डिफर. प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर्स, दे डू नॉट हैव एनी वोटिंग राइट्स, तो इनको कैलकुलेट नहीं करेंगे when we are ascertaining the total voting power. So when ascertaining the total voting power of a company, we are only going to look at the shares which carry voting rights. So हम total voting power का definition देखेंगे in some time. But for now, understand that if one company, it exercises control over more than 50%, see it is more than 50%, मतलब अगर 50% भी total voting power hold कर रहा है ना, तो भी holding subsidiary relation नहीं होगा. अगर 50% से ज्यादा है, तो ही हम बोलेंगे कि holding subsidiary relationship है. Okay, so it is very important that the control is more than 50%. If it is equal to 50%, there's no holding subsidiary relationship. It has to be more than 50%, and only then we say that holding subsidiary relation has come into existence. Is this much clear? इतना clear है? Okay. सो टू सिचुएशंस, अगर इनमें से कोई भी सिचुएशन एग्जिस्ट करता है, तो हम बोलेंगे कि हाँ, कंपनीज में होल्डिंग सब्सिडरी का रिलेशनशिप है. अभी लेट मी वॉक यू थ्रू द डेफिनेशन ऑफ सब्सिडरी कंपनी, और उसके बाद मैं एक ऐसा क्वेश्चन पूछूंगी जिससे आप लोग कंफ्यूज हो जाओगे. डोंट वरी, आई विल आल्सो गिव यू द आंसर टू द क्वेश्चन, बट बिफोर दैट आई वुड वांट टू सी कि आप लोग उस क्वेश्चन का क्या आंसर करते हैं. तो याद है कल जब हम लोग डिस्कस कर रहे थे, क्लास जब कर रहे थे, तब हमने we reached upon a conclusion that foreign company is not included in the definition of company. And since we've reached upon that conclusion, let me just walk you through the definition of subsidiary company, and your answer would change. Okay, so we'll look at the definition from the Bare Act. Okay, so section 2 clause 87 defines a subsidiary company. So subsidiary in relation to any other company, that is the holding company, means a company in which the holding company controls the composition of board of directors or exercises or controls more than 1/2 of the total share capital. This is being changed. This is total voting power now. Voting power either at its own or together with one or more of its subsidiary. या तो खुद own कर रहा है, खुद control कर रहा है, या फिर along with one or more of its subsidiaries, it is controlling the total voting power. Okay, so यहाँ पे ना, if you look at the definition, everywhere the term used is company. यहाँ पे भी company, यहाँ पे भी holding company. Now my question is, can a foreign company become holding company या फिर subsidiary company? हर जगह in the definition we have come across the word in relation to any other company means a company in which the holding company, हर जगह सिर्फ company यूज किया है। और हमने कल ही समझा था कि अगर कंपनी यूज किया है तो इसमें फॉरेन कंपनी तो इंक्लूडेड नहीं है। बट आपने कुछ ऐसे सिचुएशंस देखे होंगे जहां पे एक फॉरेन कंपनी इंडियन कंपनी का होल्डिंग कंपनी, से यूनिलीवर लिमिटेड एंड हिंदुस्तान यूनिलीवर लिमिटेड, or say Nestle Swiss and Nestle India. तो यूनिलीवर इज द होल्डिंग कंपनी, नेस्ले स्विस इज द होल्डिंग कंपनी। कैसे पॉसिबल है ये? अभी हमने फॉरेन हर जगह डेफिनेशन में तो कंपनी टर्म यूज किया है, और कंपनी में वी हैव अंडरस्टूड कि फॉरेन कंपनी तो इंक्लूडेड है ही नहीं। अभी फॉरेन कंपनी इंक्लूडेड ही नहीं है, तो फिर फॉरेन कंपनी होल्डिंग सब्सिडी रिलेशनशिप कैसे एस्टेब्लिश कर पा रही है? नाउ दिस इज माय क्वेश्चन, ये मेरा बहुत बड़ा डाउट है जिसका आंसर आप लोग करोगे। You are going to give me the answer to this. So I'll wait for your answer. I give you 2 minutes. सोचो और आंसर करो। Okay. Not possible. क्या not possible? Confusing है। Confusing है इसलिए तो मैं पूछ रही हूँ। Confusing नहीं होता तो I wouldn't have asked you this type of question. Confuse करने के लिए ही पूछा है। थोड़ा सोचो, try if you can. Okay, let me clear your confusion. हमको ज्यादा दिमाग नहीं लगाना है ना, हम क्यों सोचे? You've asked us the question, you give us the answer. We want the answer to everything. Okay, so यहाँ पे क्या होता है? If you remember, हमने कंपनी के डेफिनेशन के बाद जो दूसरा डेफिनेशन देखा था was the definition of body corporate. And वहां पे foreign company is included in the definition of body corporate. We've understood that body corporate में तो company incorporated outside India included है। तो अभी यहाँ पे सब्सिडरी कंपनी में कैसे हम फॉरेन कंपनी को इंक्लूड करते हैं? लेट्स हैव अ लुक एट द डेफिनेशन। तो ये जो एक्सप्लेनेशन दिख रहा है ना, एक्सप्लेनेशन का पॉइंट नंबर सी देखो, एक्सप्लेनेशन का क्लॉज सी देखो, क्या बोलता है? द एक्सप्रेशन कंपनी includes any body corporate. This is explanation for section 2 clause 87, ठीक है? ये जो एक्सप्लेनेशन है, ये एक्सप्लेनेशन स्पेसिफिकली सब्सिडी कंपनी के डेफिनेशन के लिए एक्सप्लेनेशन है। और यहाँ पे एक्सप्लेनेशन के क्लॉज सी में क्लियरली स्टेट किया हुआ है दैट द एक्सप्रेशन कंपनी, मतलब in the definition wherever this term company is being used, it includes a body corporate. That is, for the purpose of this definition, wherever this term company is being used, उसमें body corporate included है. It includes the term body corporate in it. तो इसका मतलब क्या? यहाँ पे जो कंपनी है, it is not only company but it includes body corporate. एंड बिकॉज इट इंक्लूड्स अ बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट, तो यहाँ पे फॉरेन कंपनी भी अपने आप इंक्लूडेड हो जाएगा. It includes body corporate, so foreign company is also included in this particular in this particular definition. So in this way foreign company जो है वो भी include हो जाती है in the definition of subsidiary company, and that is the reason why foreign companies भी holding subsidiary relationship establish कर सकते हैं. I hope I'm clear. I hope I'm clear. अब समझा? Okay. So this is the reason why a foreign company is included in the definition of subsidiary company. Also, composition का explanation में clause B देखो. The composition of board of directors मतलब क्या? If the other company exercise some power as in it has the discretion to appoint or remove all or majority of directors in the other company, that is the subsidiary company. So this is how holding subsidiary relationship is established. So let's have a look at the definition of holding company. So holding company का definition बहुत simple है. Holding company in relation to one or more other companies means a company to which such companies are subsidiary. मतलब holding company वो company है जिसके subsidiary companies है. Holding company in relation to some other company means a company to which such companies are company of which such companies are subsidiary. तो अगर subsidiary companies है ये जिनके भी सब्सिडीज है वो हो जाएगा होल्डिंग कंपनी. Okay, so holding and subsidiary relation is established in this manner. Now let me give you a few situations and you tell me whether there's holding subsidiary relationship or not. So these are four situations. अभी इन four situations में आप मुझे बताइए कौन से situation में there is holding subsidiary relation and which company is the holding company, and कौन से situation में there is no holding subsidiary relation and which कौन से situation में there is no holding subsidiary relationship. You are going to answer this. I am not going to answer this. ओके, बहुत ही क्विक आंसर दे दिया आप लोगों ने. Arya says every situation is a holding subsidiary relationship. Abhi says every situation except third one because it is not more than 50%. Very good. So, यहाँ पे if you look at all the situations carefully, यहाँ पे A is appointing all directors in B. So when A is appointing all the directors in B, so it is controlling the composition of board of directors. So यहाँ पे तो A is the holding company and B is the subsidiary company. X controls 61% of the total voting power. TVP is the total voting power in Y. So it is more than 50%. तो यहाँ पे भी X is the holding company and Y is the subsidiary company. D controls 50% total voting power. Is it more than 50%? No, it is not. हमने definition में क्या पढ़ा है? It has to be more than 50%. But यहाँ पे is it more than 50%? No, it is not. यहाँ पे there is no holding subsidiary relationship. However, R के केस में it is 50.9%. 50% से ज्यादा है? हाँ है. तो 50% से ज्यादा हो गया तो होल्डिंग सब्सिडियरी रिलेशनशिप भी एस्टैब्लिश हो गया. तो इसीलिए यहाँ पे R is the holding company and T is the subsidiary company. Are you all clear with this? समझ में आया? आर्या, are you clear with where you went wrong? Yes. Okay. So let's now have a look at the definition. Let's now understand what is an associate company. Now, when we talk of an associate company, में क्या होता है? So associate company is basically a company जहाँ पे the other company has significant influence. So wherein one company has significant influence over the other company, we say associate company है. अभी significant influence का मतलब क्या? Significant influence का मतलब है controlling at least 20% of the total voting power. When we say one company has significant influence over the other when it controls at least 20% of the total voting power in the other company or is indulged in making significant business decisions of that other company. यहाँ पे क्या यूज हुआ टर्म at least. Now at least means what? If it is equal to 20%, तो भी हम बोलेंगे कि associate company है. So at least 20%. It can either be greater than or equal to 20%. Which means what? अगर total voting power का range 20% से 50% तक है, तो उस सिचुएशन में will term the company an associate company. However, 50% से ज्यादा है, तो उस सिचुएशन में होल्डिंग सब्सिडरी रिलेशनशिप एस्टैब्लिश हो जाएगा. उस सिचुएशन में the company which is exercising this control will become the holding company. So an associate company is basically a company wherein one company exercises significant influence in that other company. Significant influence basically means controlling at least 20% of the total voting power, or the company being indulged in making some significant business decisions of that other company. So let's now have a look at the definition of associate company. So associate company in relation to another company means a company in which that other company has significant influence, but which is not a subsidiary of the company having such influence, and it includes a joint venture company as well. So associate company kya hai? Wherein the other company has significant influence. Now what is significant influence? Significant influence means control of at least 20% of the total voting power, or control of or participation in business decisions under an agreement. And the expression joint venture means joint arrangement whereby the parties have joint control of arrangement, have rights to the net assets of the arrangement. So what is an associate company? Associate company is basically wherein the other company has some significant influence, which is not a subsidiary company. Significant influence ka matlab kya is? Wherein one company is controlling at least 20% of the total voting power, and not only control, they also participate in making the significant business decisions in that other company. So situation may we say that the relationship between companies is that of associate company, and the term associate company has been defined in section 2 clause 6 of the Companies Act 2013. सो यहाँ अब पे क्या समझ में आया? 20% से 50% तक अगर टोटल वोटिंग पावर कोई भी कंपनी होल्ड करी है किसी और कंपनी में, तो वो एसोसिएट कंपनी बन जाएगी. 50% से ज्यादा हो गया तो वो बन जाएगी होल्डिंग कंपनी. इज दैट क्लियर? ये समझ में आया? यस. ओके. सो होल्डिंग, सब्सिडरी एंड एसोसिएट कंपनी, हमने 3 डेफिनेशंस देखे अभी तक. तीनों में कोई कंफ्यूजन, कोई डाउट? Any question with regard to holding company, subsidiary company, or associate company? Now there's one more thing, okay? There's one more thing which you should know, and that is subsidiary of subsidiary is also a subsidiary. मतलब क्या? Say there's a company A Limited. A Limited is the holding company of B Limited. B Limited is the holding company of C Limited. A Limited और C Limited का आपस में कोई लेना देना नहीं है. They have no connection. बट क्योंकि ये होल्डिंग कंपनी है और ये सब्सिडी कंपनी है, ये होल्डिंग कंपनी, ये सब्सिडी कंपनी है, subsidiary of subsidiary will also be treated as subsidiary company. So अगर कोई कंपनी का सब्सिडी कंपनी है और उसका सब्सिडरी कंपनी है, तो जो होल्डिंग कंपनी होगा that will be termed as the ultimate holding company. So though A Limited does not have any direct control over C Limited, but because A Limited is the holding company of B Limited, C Limited will also become A Limited's subsidiary company. So subsidiary of subsidiary is also a subsidiary. And apart from it, there's one more thing which you should know, and that is if a private company is subsidiary of a public company. 1 minute. If a private company is subsidiary of a public company, उस सिचुएशन में ये जो प्राइवेट कंपनी है, it will be deemed to be a public company. And the provisions which are applicable to a public company will be applied to that private company as well. Though the nature of the company will still remain same, it will be private company in nature, but because it is subsidiary of a public company, all the provisions which we apply in case of a public company will be applicable in case of that private company as well. So a private company which is subsidiary of a public company will also be treated as a will also be treated as a public company. So दो चीजें, subsidiary of subsidiary is also a subsidiary, and a private company which is subsidiary of a public company will also be treated as a subsidiary company. और जब हम बोलते हैं ना कि holding subsidiary relationship establish होना चाहिए, total voting power calculate करना है, so it is not necessary that one company is individually holding the entire total voting power. It can either individually hold या फिर it may hold along with its subsidiaries. Say for example, A Limited holds 60% in B Limited. अभी ये दूसरी कंपनी है सी लिमिटेड, यहाँ पे ए लिमिटेड जो है वो होल्ड करता है 30% और बी लिमिटेड जो है वो होल्ड करता है 25%. तो इन दोनों का कंबाइंड टोटल वोटिंग पावर कम्स टू 55%. सो विच मीन्स यहाँ पे the holding company is not individually holding the entire controlling the entire total voting controlling the total voting power, but rather it is along with its subsidiary company wherein it is controlling the total voting power of that other company. And that's how holding subsidiary relationship is being established in this kind of situation. So are you all clear with holding subsidiary and associate company? ये समझ में आया? Any doubt, any question? अरे पहले ब्रेक मत मांगो, पहले ये बताओ कि समझ में आया नहीं. What break do you want in this class? Please. I also plead you to answer my questions. You all don't do that. You want a break. Break के लिए सब आ जाते हैं आगे. Okay, we'll do one thing. I'll give you a question and I'll give you. अच्छा ठीक है. Take a break of two minutes, not more than that. Only 2 minutes. We have a lot to do. We'll start in exactly 2 minutes from now. Only 2 minutes. Okay, so the break time is over. Time's up. Are you there? Okay. So let's start with the other few definitions. So अभी तक ना हमने क्या किया है, हमने सारी types of companies के बारे में देख लिया. We've understood about different types of companies till now. Any doubt before I proceed further? I would just ask if you have any doubt, please ask right now. We'll do some basic definitions and then we'll go to two more types of companies, OPCs and Section 8 companies. OPCs मतलब one person companies. कोई doubt है? I'll deem your silence as acceptance, so you have no doubt here. Okay, so let's start with a few basic definitions, and then and about the other definitions, you have all the definitions, right? So सारे definitions हम अभी एक साथ नहीं करेंगे. So, जैसे जैसे the terms come in, as in when we progress with the other topics, as in when the terms come in, we'll do the definitions there. तो जहाँ पे जो definition की जरूरत है, हम उस definition को वहाँ पे देखेंगे. Instead of doing all the definitions together and you not understanding anything, से better है जहाँ पे जो term use हो रहा है, वहाँ पे हम उस definition को देखेंगे. So the first definition is the definition of total voting power. So total voting power is defined in section 2 clause 89, and it means in relation to any matter means the total number of votes which may be cast in regard to that matter on a poll at a meeting of the company if all the members thereof or their proxies having a right to vote are present at the meeting and cast their votes. So total voting power मतलब क्या? जितने टोटल मेंबर्स है जिनके पास वोटिंग राइट्स है वो सारे लोग जब अपना वोट कास्ट कर रहे हैं इन अ मीटिंग either on their own or through proxies, doesn't matter. But when we talk of total voting power, it means the total number of votes which may be cast in a meeting wherein all the members are present, either in person or through a proxy. So एक meeting company का जिसमें say for example there are 50 members in a company, okay, and there's a meeting of the company which is going on जिसमें 50 के 50 members present है, everyone present, not even a single member missing. So इस situation में ये जो टोटल 50 मेंबर्स जो वोट्स कास्ट करेंगे उसको हम बोलेंगे टोटल वोटिंग पावर. सो टोटल वोटिंग पावर मतलब क्या? टोटल नंबर ऑफ वोट्स जो कास्ट हो सकते हैं इन अ मीटिंग on a poll where all the members of the company are present either in person or through their proxies. So that is what total voting power means. अभी हम देखते हैं definition of registrar. So registrar means a registrar, an additional registrar, a joint registrar, deputy registrar or an assistant registrar having the duty of registering companies and discharging various functions. So registrar का काम क्या होता है? कंपनी को रजिस्टर करना and जो different duties registrar के ऊपर devolve की गई है by the Companies Act, registrar will have to perform those functions, discharge those functions when he is performing his duty. सो रजिस्ट्रार का मेन काम तो क्या होता है? कंपनी को रजिस्टर करना, एंड उसके अलावा द रजिस्ट्रार इज designated with certain functions by the Companies Act, so he'll have to discharge those duties and functions as well. So that is a registrar. And the registrar, he also maintains a register of companies जिसमें सारी companies जो भी incorporate हो रही है उन सबके details होते हैं. Let's now have a look at the definition of key managerial person. Very often you will come across this word KMP जब भी हम पढ़ेंगे आगे about different provisions, who is responsible, किसको penalize किया जाएगा, कौन है, तो वहाँ पे बहुत सी बार ना KMP word use होगा. KMP मतलब key managerial person. अभी key managerial person in relation to company में कौन कौन आते हैं? Let's understand. So key managerial person in relation to a company means the chief executive officer or the managing director or the manager. तो सबसे पहले कौन आ गया? CEO, MD या फिर manager of the company. Manager here is not a normal manager. Manager here is a person who is controlling the substantial operations of the company. So CEO, MD, manager, they are KMPs. Apart from them, the company secretary, मतलब CS, whole-time director of the company, then chief financial officer, he is also a KMP, and such other officer not more than one level below the directors who is in whole-time employment designated as KMP by the board. So apart from these specific people, KMP can include any other person or any other officer who is not more than one level below the rank of directors. मतलब ये directors का level है, इनसे एक level नीचे तक के officers को हम KMP के जैसे assign कर सकते हैं, इनसे और नीचे वाले officers को KMP के जैसे assign नहीं कर सकते, ठीक है? So any other officer who is not below more than one level below the directors and who has been designated, मतलब बोर्ड ने स्पेसिफिकली इन लोगों को डेजिग्नेट किया है एज की मैनेजरियल पर्सन एंड दिस ऑफिसर इज इन होल टाइम एम्प्लॉयमेंट ऑफ द कंपनी, होल टाइम एम्प्लॉय. And any other officer as may be prescribed. However, no one has been prescribed yet. So who is KMP? CEO, MD, manager, CFO, CS, whole-time director, any other officer who has been designated as a key managerial person by the board of directors of the company. So ये सारे लोगों को हम क्या बोलेंगे? ये सारे लोगों को हम बोलेंगे key managerial person. Key managerial person मतलब क्या? In simple terms or if we talk in layman terms, मतलब वो इंसान जो एक बहुत ही जरूरी इंसान है कंपनी के चलाने में. He has an important role to play when we are talking about the operations of the company or any decision which is being taken for the company. So he's a key person, keynote person from the company's perspective. So that person is a key managerial person. Clear hai? Key managerial person. Okay. Moving on to the other definition. So register of companies or officer and default, हम दोनों ही कर रहे हैं. Officer and default का definition is important. Reason being, for understanding purposes. You will not be asked definitions as it is, okay, in the examination. आपको definition नहीं पूछा जाएगा. You will not be asked what is the definition of a subsidiary company या फिर what is the definition of a holding company. ऐसे नहीं पूछते. You might have to use the definition in examination in order to come to a conclusion in a question which is being asked. But direct question on definition, very difficult. मतलब ऐसा कभी कुछ पूछा नहीं है ICI ने. They may ask you meaning of certain terms, but again, it depends. It would only be restricted to, I would say, type of companies या फिर some basic terms. They will not ask you what is the definition of officer in default या फिर what is the definition of total voting power. ऐसे नहीं पूछेंगे. But still, you should know who is an officer in default. Reason being very simple. अभी आगे जितने भी सेक्शंस हम लोग देखने वाले हैं ना, उसमें बहुत से बार ये वाला टर्म ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट यूज होगा. एंड बिकॉज दिस टर्म विल बी यूज्ड वेरी ऑफन, you should know what is the meaning of officer in default, and that is the reason why we will have a look at the definition of officer in default as well. Okay, so let's first understand register of companies का छोटू सा definition, then we'll go to the definition of officer in default. So section 2 clause 74 talks of register of companies. It means the register of companies maintained by the registrar on paper or in any electronic form. So register of companies is basically a register which is maintained by the registrar either on paper or in any electronic mode. So आजकल तो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मोड ही होता है, पहले ऑन पेपर रजिस्टर मेंटेन किया जाता था प्रॉपर वाला, but nowadays everything happens electronically only. Who save paper, right? We are all ambassadors of safe paper. So use electronic modes, you use digital means. Digital payments जैसे यूज करते हैं आजकल, वैसे ही रजिस्ट्रार्स भी डॉक्यूमेंट्स को जो है इलेक्ट्रॉनिकली स्टोर करते हैं. Now let's start with the definition of officer and default. So section 2 clause 60 defines an officer in default, and it says officer who is in default for the purpose of any provision in this act which enacts that an officer of the company who is in default shall be liable to any penalty or punishment by way of imprisonment, fine or otherwise means any of the following officers. इसका मतलब क्या है? ये पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट जो है वो ये बात बोल रहा है कि ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ एनी प्रोविजन इन द एक्ट, मतलब ये इस एक्ट में बहुत सी जगह पे ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट यूज किया होगा टर्म, और जो ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट है उसको पनिशमेंट दिया जाएगा क्योंकि उसने कोई डिफॉल्ट कमिट किया है. पनिशमेंट कुड बी इन द फॉर्म ऑफ इम्प्रिजनमेंट, फाइन और एनी अदर टाइप ऑफ पनिशमेंट. तो उस सिचुएशन में ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट एक्चुअली होगा कौन, कौन से इंसान को हम ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट कंसिडर करेंगे, हु विल बी कंसिडर्ड और हु शैल बी कंसिडर्ड एज द ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट. लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड. सो इट means any of the following officers. It can be all of the following or any of the following depending on the case. Officer in default कौन है वो डिफर करेगा, ठीक है. So होल टाइम डायरेक्टर, की मैनेजरियल पर्सन. अभी यहाँ पे की मैनेजरियल पर्सन आ गया तो यहाँ पे सीईओ, सीएफओ, कंपनी सेक्रेटरी, एनी अदर ऑफिसर, ये लोग ऑटोमेटिकली आ गए. Do you think there's a need to mention all of these people's names separately now? Definitely not, because key managerial person में ये सारे लोग included है, right? So whole time director हो सकता है, KMP हो सकता है, या फिर where there is no KMP, when say there is no KMP in a company, such director or directors as specified by the board and who has given his consent in writing to the board to such specification, or all the directors if no director is specified. So अगर KMP नहीं है तो directors who have been specified by the board. इस चीज के लिए जिन भी डायरेक्टर्स को बोर्ड ने स्पेसिफाई किया वो डायरेक्टर्स, बट इन अ सिचुएशन देयर इज नो डायरेक्टर हु हैज बीन स्पेसिफाइड, देन ऑल द डायरेक्टर्स. Then any person who under the immediate authority of board or any key managerial person is charged with any responsibility, मतलब एक इंसान पे कोई responsibility दी गई थी, उसको कोई responsibility दी गई थी, including maintaining, filing or distribution of accounts or records, authorizes, actively participates in, knowingly permits or knowingly fails to take any active steps to prevent any default. So अगर एक इंसान पे there were some responsibilities but he fails to take any steps to prevent default, or he actively participates in the default or knowingly permits the default to happen, then that person shall be considered as the officer in default. Or it can be any person in accordance with whose advice, directions or instructions the board of directors of the company is accustomed to act, other than a person who gives advice to the board of directors in professional capacity. तो मतलब क्या, जिसकी एडवाइस पे ये लोग काम कर रहे हैं वो भी ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट हो सकता है, बट अगर कोई प्रोफेशनल कैपेसिटी में एडवाइस दे रहा है, प्रोफेशनल कैपेसिटी मतलब क्या, सीए हो गया, सीएस हो गया, लॉयर हो गया. So these are professionals. इन लोगों से एडवाइस मांगा तो इन्होंने अपनी प्रोफेशनल कैपेसिटी में आपको एडवाइस दिया है. यू कैन नॉट होल्ड दीज प्रोफेशनल्स एज ऑफिसर्स इन डिफॉल्ट फॉर अ डिफॉल्ट व्हिच इज बीइंग मेड बाय द कंपनी. सो एनी पर्सन जिसके एडवाइस पे या जिसके इंस्ट्रक्शंस के हिसाब से बोर्ड काम कर रहा है, दैट पर्सन विल बी कंसिडर्ड एज ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट. बट if that person is giving advice in his professional capacity, then in that situation board in that situation that person will not be considered as an officer in default. मैं तो अपनी प्रोफेशनल कैपेसिटी में काम कर रही हूँ. से फॉर एग्जांपल किसी कंपनी के बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स मेरे पास आते हैं, मी बीइंग अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, दे कम टू मी फॉर सम एडवाइस. नाउ आई हैव गिवन them some advice and I have given them advice in professional capacity. पर अभी वो लोग मुझे ही ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट बोल रहे हैं, स्टेटिंग दैट वी एक्टेड अकॉर्डिंग टू योर एडवाइस एंड सिंस वी एक्टेड अकॉर्डिंग टू योर एडवाइस यू आर एन ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर मैटर रिलेटेड टू द कंपनी. इज दिस करेक्ट? अरे भाई, आप तो मेरे पास प्रोफेशनल के जैसे आए थे. मैं प्रोफेशनल हूँ, मैंने अपनी एडवाइस आपको दी, मेरा काम वहां पे खत्म हो गया. You cannot hold me liable for your company's default. So if a person is giving advice in his professional capacity, तो उसको हम officer in default नहीं मानेंगे. Then every director in respect of a contravention of any provisions of this act who is aware of such contravention by virtue of the receipt of him of any proceedings of the board or participation in such proceeding without objecting the same. मतलब डायरेक्टर को पता था कॉन्ट्रवेंशन हो रहा था पर फिर भी वो पार्टिसिपेट कर रहा था इन इट. सो एंड ही, या फिर जब कॉन्ट्रवेंशन डायरेक्टर की चालाकी या उसके कंसेंट की वजह से हो रहा है, कन्विवेंस और बिकॉज ऑफ हिज कंसेंट, तो उस सिचुएशन में भी एवरी डायरेक्टर हु इज इन्वॉल्व्ड इन सच एन ऑफेंस shall be considered as officer in default. And in respect of issue or transfer of any shares of the company, just share transfer agents, registrars, and merchant bankers to the issue or transfer. So अगर share transfer या issue की बात है तो उस situation में registrars, merchant bankers या फिर share transfer agents जो होते हैं उनको भी हम as officer in default consider करेंगे. So these are the people who would be considered as officers in default in different situations for different defaults which happen in case of a company. Is this clear? समझ में आया क्या ऑफिसर इन डिफॉल्ट में कौन कौन लोग आएंगे? Yes, no, not applicable. Clear? You give answers alternately. हाँ, एक बार एक आंसर करेगा, दूसरी बार दूसरा आंसर करेगा. हाँ, ऐसे बोलो तो फिर दोनों सबके आंसर आते हैं. Anyways, so this was with respect to an officer in default. Abhi, there's one more definition, definition of control. देखो, जहाँ पे भी वर्ड प्रिस्क्राइब्ड यूज होता है ना, उसका मतलब है as prescribed by the rules. So at several places we'll come across this word prescribe, prescribe, prescribe. जब हम sections पढ़ते हैं ना, तो बहुत सारी जगहों पे ये word use होता है, prescribed, as may be prescribed, as may be prescribed. So what does that prescribed mean? That prescribed actually means as prescribed in the rules. Who's an officer? Officer includes any director, manager, or KMP, or any person in accordance with whose instructions or directions the board of directors are accustomed to act. Notification matlab kya? Notification which is published in the official gazette, which notifies different changes, different amendments which are being brought in the act. Okay, let's have a look at the definition of control. So 2 clause 27 defines control. Control shall include the right to appoint majority of the directors or to control the management or policy decisions exercisable by a person or persons acting individually or in concert directly or indirectly, including by virtue of their shareholding or management rights, or shareholders agreements or voting agreements, or in any other manner. So control का मतलब क्या? A power to appoint majority of directors, या फिर controlling the management and policy decisions which are being made, or either individually controlling or controlling the shareholding and management rights, या फिर shareholding agreements, या फिर voting arrangements जो भी बन रहा है उसमें अगर कोई control है. So it includes all these rights. So when we use this term control, it includes all these rights which have been specified. Okay. Now talking of the other definitions, we'll complete them. There are many definitions which you have. So almost जो भी आपके definitions है वो सारे definitions आपको chapter 1 में दिए हुए हैं. But if we complete all the definitions all together, you'll not be able to understand a few terms, few definitions. Would make no sense in doing all the definitions together right now. So as and when we progress with the chapters ahead, जैसे जैसे वो term आता है, जैसे एक charges का chapter हम लोग करने वाले हैं, so वहाँ पे we'll talk of charges and we'll do the definition of charges there. Deposits के chapter में we'll do the definition of deposits. So as and when we progress, as and when we proceed with the respective chapters, we will also have to look at the definitions as well. So जैसे जैसे ये chapters होते जाएंगे, we'll complete all the definitions, and if at all there's any definition which we are left with, we'll complete it towards the end. Okay, is that clear? Okay, ठीक है. So abhi let's talk of one person company and section 8 companies. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was muted and I was speaking. So Abhi, you do not have to memorize all the sections and definitions. Your main focus right now should be on understanding the concept, understanding the meaning of different terms which are being used. अभी बात करूं मैं याद करने की section numbers, over a period of time अपने आप याद हो जाते हैं. But if you concentrate or if you focus only on memorizing the section numbers, you will miss upon the important provisions is what I would say. अगर याद है section number तो very good, no problem at all. अगर याद कर सकते हो, याद करने की capability है, please do it. But do not focus only on memorizing the section numbers. That is not something which you should be doing. Okay? So you do not have to memorize things. You have to understand the things. Understanding is something where you should focus on than memorizing different things. Okay, is that clear? I hope I've answered your question. So do not focus only on memorizing, but rather your focus should be on conceptual understanding right now. Section numbers बाद में अपने आप याद हो जाएंगे. You don't have to worry about it. If you only focus on memorizing and memorizing things will not work, and it will be very difficult for you later on. अभी ऐसा लगता है कि हाँ ये भी याद होना चाहिए, वो भी याद होना चाहिए, but you have a lot to study. ये तो बस शुरुआत है. So let's start with OPC now. 1% company से start करते हैं, and then we'll talk of Section 8 company. So 1% company, this concept of 1% company, this concept was brought in from Companies Act 2013 only. ठीक है, तो OPC जो है ये कॉन्सेप्ट 2013 के एक्ट से ही आया. पहले 1956 वाला जो एक्ट था उसमें there was no concept of 1% company at all. So this concept of OPC was brought in from the Companies Act 2013. The main intention behind bringing this in was to encourage entrepreneurship amongst people. Abhi one person wouldn't start a company because they would feel कि हाँ कंपनी स्टार्ट करने के लिए तो 2 लोग चाहिए या 7 लोग चाहिए, तो हम कैसे कंपनी स्टार्ट करें, हम तो अकेले हैं. सो इसीलिए कॉन्सेप्ट को लाया गया ताकि entrepreneurship को encourage किया जाए amongst people, so that people who want to individually start their business, they also form a company and enhance their operations. So this concept of 1% company was brought in. Now, after this concept of 1% company was brought in, Abhi, there are certain things with regard to 1% company. Now, say for example, Mr. Abhi, हमारी क्लास में जो अभी है उसको एक 1% कंपनी खोलना है, ठीक है. और अभी को जब 1% कंपनी खोलना है तो अभी विल हैव टू ऑल्सो अपॉइंट अ पर्सन एज हिज नॉमिनी. Let's not take Abhi's name, let's take someone else's name. I don't want to hurt anyone's sentiments here, so let's change the name. Say there's a person, Mr. Raghu. हाँ, तो मिस्टर रघु को 1% कंपनी स्टार्ट करना है, और उसके लिए अभी मिस्टर रघु तो इकलौता इंसान है. 1% कंपनी नेम itself suggest एक बंदा कंपनी स्टार्ट कर रहा है, तो 1 member, there will be only 1 member in this company. There's 1 member is required to start this company. बट अगर मिस्टर रघु को कुछ हो गया तो फिर क्या? What if Mr. Raghu dies? What if Mr. Raghu becomes incapable? What if Mr. Raghu becomes incapacitated? Who will handle the business? Who will take his place? So इसलिए Raghu will have to appoint a person as his nominee. नॉमिनी का नाम कहाँ पे लिखा होगा? Memorandum of Association of this 1% company shall state the name of nominee. Nominee is basically a person who will perform functions in case of death or incapacity of the member of that 1% company. अभी nominee का नाम state करना होगा in memorandum. Can Raghu make any random person as his nominee? हाँ, बना सकता है किसी को भी nominee, but before appointing a person as his nominee, nominee का consent obtain करना है is very important. So before appointing any person as a nominee, it is very important that the member he obtains the consent of the person who is being appointed as the nominee. The nominee का consent लेना is important. Now say Raghu, he has appointed his friend Mr. Ram as his nominee. ठीक है, राम को उसने as nominee appoint किया and Ram has given his consent to act as nominee. अभी क्या होता है ना, After a few days, there's a fight between Raghu and Ram. रघु राम में फाइट हो गई. अभी फाइट हो गई तो रघु डिसाइड्स आई नो लॉन्गर वांट टू कंटिन्यू विथ राम एज माय नॉमिनी, आई वांट टू चेंज द नॉमिनी. अभी मुझे राम नहीं चाहिए, राम के साथ मेरा झगड़ा हो गया है, तो मुझे अभी राम को निकालना है एंड आई वांट टू अपॉइंट समवन एल्स एज नॉमिनी. ठीक है. कैन रघु डू दिस? आंसर इज हाँ, रघु ये कर सकता है. रघु कैन अपॉइंट समवन एल्स, बट ये जो समवन एल्स आ रहा है ना, इसका भी कंसेंट लेना जरूरी है. ऐसे ही किसी को भी नहीं अपॉइंट कर सकते. जिसको भी अपॉइंट कर रहे हो उसका कंसेंट लेना जरूरी है. एंड सिमिलरली से फाइट के बाद ना रघु के पहले राम ही डिसाइड कर लेता है कि नहीं, अभी मुझे कंटिन्यू नहीं करना, मेरे कंटिन्यू नहीं करना एज नॉमिनी फॉर रघु, सो मैं अपना ही विथड्रॉ कर लेता हूँ, कंसेंट विथड्रॉ कर लेता हूँ. अभी आई विल नो लॉन्गर become Raghu's nominee. I'll no longer act as Raghu's nominee. Can Ram do so? Answer is हाँ, राम कर सकता है. Which means what? We've understood 4 points till now. First one ये था कि Raghu has to appoint one person as his nominee. Second point ये था कि nominee जिसको भी appoint कर रहे हैं उसका consent लेना, उसका approval लेना is important. Third point ये था that the member, he has a right to change his nominee at any point of time he wants to, but when he is changing the nominee, the other person whom he is appointing as the nominee, उसका भी consent obtain करना पड़ेगा. And the nominee also has a right to withdraw his nomination, withdraw his consent at any point of time. ठीक है, ये points clear है? ये 4 points समझ में आए आप लोगों को? Okay. So abhi the next question which comes up is, who can become a member and who can be appointed as a nominee? कौन बन सकता है member in a one person company, या फिर कौन बन सकता है nominee in a one person company? The first requirement is natural citizen, natural person. Natural person मतलब क्या? Human beings, we are natural persons, which means what? A company cannot incorporate a one person company. या ये जो artificial persons है, artificial persons, ये लोग one person company में ना तो member बन सकते हैं ना ही nominee बन सकते हैं. So one person company incorporate करने के लिए या फिर one person company में nominee बनने के लिए आपका natural person होना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है. So you have to be a natural person. An Indian citizen, इंडिया का सिटीजन होना चाहिए, फॉरेन सिटीजन नहीं बन सकता है नॉमिनी, वेदर रेसिडेंट इन इंडिया और नॉट. रेसिडेंट हो ना हो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, बट इंडियन सिटीजन होना चाहिए. These two are mandatory conditions. The person has to be a natural person. He has to be an Indian citizen. He may or may not be a resident in India. Resident in India मतलब क्या? A person who has resided in India for a time span of 120 days or more in the immediately preceding financial year. Resident in India is a person who has stayed in India for not less than 120 days. That is 120 days or more in the immediately preceding financial year. But ये condition mandatory है क्या? नहीं, ये condition mandatory नहीं है. He may or may not be a resident in India. कोई फर्क, whether he is a resident or not, he is eligible. But Indian citizen होना is mandatory. So what is the mandatory condition? Natural person, Indian citizen. Is residential status mandatory? Is being a resident in India mandatory? No, it is not. Initially it was, but इसमें amendment आया और उसके बाद से उन्होंने जो residential status का criteria था, which was mandatory earlier, they have done away with that criteria of mandatory. So who can become a nominee or who can become a member in a one person company? A natural person, an Indian citizen, whether he is a resident in India or not, is eligible to become a nominee and a member in one person company. Clear? ये समझ में आया? अरे yes और no बोलने में भी कितना प्रॉब्लम होता है ना आप लोगों को. Anyways, Moving ahead. Now, other question which comes up is, in how many one person companies can I become a member? अभी से मैंने एक वन पर्सन कंपनी इनकॉर्पोरेट की, अभी मैं दूसरी वन पर्सन कंपनी भी इनकॉर्पोरेट करना चाहती हूँ, कैन आई डू इट? आंसर इज नो, आई कैन नॉट. I can become a member in only one person company. So member of only one OPC, not more than that. And similarly, I can become a nominee also in only one OPC. ऐसे नहीं कि मैं 3-4 OPC में nominee बनूं. No, not allowed. I can become a member and nominee in only one person company. So एक one person company में member और दूसरे one person company में nominee. ठीक है? So I can become a member in only one person company, and I can become a nominee also in only one person company. Now say there are two OPCs, OPC1 and OPC2. Mr. Rajiv is a member of OPC1 and he is a nominee in OPC2. Mr. Vijay is a nominee in OPC1 and he is a member of OPC2. Now in this situation, what happened was Rajiv की death हो गई, Rajiv dies. अभी मेंबर मर गया तो मेंबर की जगह कौन लेगा? नॉमिनी लेगा. तो विजय अभी मेंबर बन गया. इससे क्या हो गया? विजय इज ऑलरेडी अ मेंबर इन OPC2 एंड यहाँ पे भी ही इज बिकम अ मेंबर बिकॉज ऑफ राजीव्स डेथ. तो अभी इस सिचुएशन में ये प्रोविजन तो वायलेट हो गया बिकॉज नाउ विजय हैज बिकम अ मेंबर इन 2 वन पर्सन कंपनीज. सो अब क्या करना पड़ेगा? अभी करेक्शन करना पड़ेगा ऑफ दिस वायलेशन एंड उस करेक्शन के लिए विजय के पास है 180 डेज. अगर ऐसा कुछ हो जाता है कि एक पर्सन 2 OPC में नॉमिनी बन गया या 2 OPC में मेंबर बन गया तो उस सिचुएशन में दैट सिचुएशन हैज टू बी करेक्टेड विद इन 180 डेज. करेक्शन करना पड़ेगा, या तो OPC2 में से मेंबरशिप हटा ले या फिर OPC1 में से मेंबरशिप हटा ले. जो भी करना है he has to do it within 180 days. But you cannot become a nominee in more than one person company and you cannot become a member in more than one person company. That clear? समझ में आया क्या? Okay. So let's have a look at the provisions. Let's analyze the provisions. So the memorandum of one person company shall indicate the name of other person, that is nominee, with his prior consent. So prior consent of the nominee is important. Who will, in the event of the death or is incapacity of the member, he will take care of the one person company. And the written consent जो obtain किया होता है from the nominee, it has to be filed with the registrar of companies at the time of incorporation. So the written consent has to be filed along with the memorandum and articles of association. Nominee can withdraw his consent at any time, ये हमने समझा था. And member may also at any time change the nominee by giving a notice to the nominee. ये भी हमने समझा था कि member को nominee change करना है तो वो भी कभी भी कर सकता है, बट चेंज करने के पहले जो ऑलरेडी नॉमिनी है उसको एक नोटिस देना पड़ेगा कि भाई मैं तुमको नॉमिनेशन में से हटा रहा हूँ. नॉमिनी अपना कंसेंट कभी भी विथड्रॉ कर सकता है. सो दिस इज समथिंग व्हिच वी ऑलरेडी अंडरस्टूड. मूविंग ऑन. It shall be the duty of member of OPC to intimate the company the change, if any, in the name of nominee. So जो भी change होता है in the name of nominee, it has to be intimated. Change in the name of nominee shall not be deemed to be an alteration of MOA. So just because nominee's name is being changed does not mean that there's an alteration of the memorandum of association. And who can become a member and nominee? Natural person, Indian citizen, whether resident in India or otherwise. मतलब he may or may not be a resident in India. Resident कौन है? Who is resided in India for not less than 120 days during the immediately preceding financial year. And a minor cannot become a member, neither he can be appointed as a nominee. And then you've also understood that a person shall not be a member of more than one person company at any point of time, and shall not be a nominee of more than one OPC, which means that a person can be member of only one OPC and can be a nominee in only one OPC. But member or nominee same time पे in more than one OPC नहीं हो सकता. So where a natural person becomes member in another OPC by virtue of him being nominee. So Mr. Vijay का जो example देखा था हमने अभी, such person shall meet the eligibility criteria within 180 days. मतलब जो भी है, अगर दो आप nominee थे and because of which you've become a member, but you are also a member in some other OPC, you will have to correct the situation within 180 days. So we give you a time span of 180 days, and within 180 days, you meet the eligibility criteria again. Eligibility criteria basically means that member in only one person company and nominee also only in one person company. Now, what are the restrictions? What are some of the restrictions upon a one-person company? So, OPC cannot be converted into a Section 8 company. Section 8 में नहीं convert कर सकते, but public या private company में कभी भी convert कर सकते. So, OPC, it can be converted into a public company or a private company at any point of time, but it cannot be converted into a Section 8 company. Now, this is also a point which is tested upon quite a few times. So they give a case study based question in MCQ, जहाँ पे वो ना ऐसे बहुत लंबा चौड़ा स्टोरी देते हैं, OPC wants to convert itself और ये वो Section 8 company का mention करते हैं, and they try and confuse. So be very careful with these type of questions. OPC convert हो सकता है, yes, into a public company or a private company, but not a Section 8 company. And OPC cannot carry out non-banking financial investment activities, including investment in securities of any body corporate. So OPC's financial investment activities nahi kar sakta. They can also not include, they can also not invest in the securities of a body corporate. So this was with respect to a one-person company. Any doubts in one-person company? Any questions with regard to one-person company? No? Abhi, let's talk of a Section 8 company. You might have heard of Reliance Foundation. Tata Foundation. And companies like this. So ये सारी companies जो होती है ना, ये क्यों incorporate होती है? They are basically incorporated for promotion of certain activities. Certain activities such as education, culture, health, environment. इन सब के लिए ये सारी institutions जो है वो काम करते हैं. Now you might have seen classmate का जो notebook आता है ना, उसके पीछे एक photo होता है wherein it is clearly stated that a portion of the proceeds is utilized for education of these poor children and all of those things. So वो सारा क्या है, वो CSR activity होता है company का. But there are certain companies which have been incorporated for the purpose of promotion of certain objectives like providing education or for the purposes of promotion of culture, tradition, or any other purpose. So इनका main objective यही है. They are companies which are not for profit. इनका intention profit कमाना नहीं है. इनका intention is promotion of different objectives which they are working towards. So they do not have any intention of earning profit. इनका aim profit कमाना नहीं है, इनका aim है कुछ काम करना और आगे बढ़ाना कंपनी को. So वो सारी कंपनीज को सेक्शन 8 कंपनीज बोलते हैं. इन कंपनीज को लाइसेंस्ड कंपनीज भी बोला जाता है. These companies are also called as licensed companies. Why do we call them as licensed companies? अभी in order to incorporate a section 8 company ना पहले अप्रूवल लेना जरूरी होता है. सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का अप्रूवल रिक्वायर्ड होता है. सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट एक लाइसेंस देगा इस कंपनी को. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल व्हेन यू लर्न ड्राइविंग, कैन यू ड्राइव विदाउट अ लाइसेंस? नाउ डोंट टेल मी हाँ हम लोग ड्राइव करते हैं विदाउट अ लाइसेंस, व्हिच इज अनएथिकल, व्हिच इज नॉट राइट. People do, yes, I know that, but is it right driving without a license? No, it is not. So आपको ड्राइविंग आती है, बट ड्राइविंग के लिए भी आपको लाइसेंस की जरूरत होती है, right? If you get caught without a license, you will be punished. So सिमिलरली एक सेक्शन 8 कंपनी फॉर्म करना है तो उसके लिए भी लाइसेंस की जरूरत है. कंपनी को लाइसेंस लेना पड़ेगा फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट इन ऑर्डर टू इनकॉर्पोरेट इटसेल्फ एज अ सेक्शन 8 कंपनी फॉर द प्रमोशन ऑफ सर्टेन ऑब्जेक्टिव्स. सो कंपनी को पहले अप्रूवल लेना पड़ेगा कि गवर्नमेंट आप हमको लाइसेंस दो, हमको इस ऑब्जेक्टिव के लिए काम करना है. तो ऑब्टेनिंग लाइसेंस इज इम्पोर्टेंट. और सेक्शन 8 कंपनी को जब लाइसेंस दिया जाता है ना, इट इज ऑल्सो अटैच विद सम टर्म्स एंड कंडीशन. गवर्नमेंट बोलती है हमने जो भी टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस पे आपको लाइसेंस दिया है, यू हैव टू कंप्लाई विद ऑल दोस टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस, एंड इफ यू नॉट कंप्लाइंग विद दोस टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस, वी विल रिवोक योर लाइसेंस. We have the authority to revoke your license if you are not complying with the terms and conditions which we have mentioned when granting the license to you. So section 8 company incorporate करने के लिए पहले लाइसेंस की जरूरत होती है. अभी अगर लाइसेंस मिल गया and company has violated the terms and conditions, लाइसेंस मिल गया, उसके बाद कंपनी सोचती है, कंपनी रन करने वाले लोग सोचते हैं कि गवर्नमेंट को क्या पता चलने वाला है, so we'll violate the terms and conditions, and they violate the terms and conditions. उस सिचुएशन में the government will revoke the license. रिवोक मतलब वापस से ले लेगा. हमने आपको परमिशन दिया, बट जिस कंडीशन पे परमिशन दिया था यू डिड नॉट फुलफिल द कंडीशन, तो अभी हम हमारा परमिशन आपसे वापस ले रहे हैं. वी आर रिवोकिंग द लाइसेंस व्हिच वी ग्रांटेड टू यू. सो इन सच अ सिचुएशन क्या होगा? इन सच अ सिचुएशन रिवोकेशन ऑफ लाइसेंस पे ना 3 चीजें हो सकती है. एक तो गवर्नमेंट बोलेगा चेंज योर स्टेटस, चेंज योर नेम. मतलब क्या? add the words private limited or limited behind your name, change the status of your company to either a private company or a public company. Second चीज जो गवर्नमेंट कर सकता है वो है amalgamation. मतलब basically merging this company with some other company which has similar objectives. So आप तो अच्छे से काम नहीं कर रहे, पर ये दूसरी कंपनी अच्छे से काम कर रही है, तो we'll amalgamate you with that other company. The third thing which the government can do is order winding up of this company. So upon revocation of license of a section 8 company, what can be the different orders passed by the central government? Can either order changing the status and changing the name, or amalgamation of this company with other company having similar objectives. Third thing which the government can do is order winding up of this company. So इन तीनों में से कुछ भी चीज गवर्नमेंट ऑर्डर कर सकते हैं. So let's now have a look at the provisions of section 8. So section 8, it deals with not for profit companies. The main object is to promote charitable objects such as commerce, art, science, sports, education, research, social welfare, religion, charity, protection of environment, etc. And they apply their profits for promotion of their objectives. They cannot utilize it for the payment of dividend to its members or for the benefit of members. So there is a prohibition on payment of dividend to its members. अगर government को ये पता चल गया कि section 8 company अपने members को dividend pay कर रही है, तो in that situation वो उसका license revoke कर सकते हैं. Now the central government shall register such person or association of person as a company with limited liability without addition. There is no addition of words limited or private limited to the name of a Section 8 company, and they issue a license subject to conditions. And registrar shall on application register such person or association as a company under this section. So application receive होगा, उसके बाद ही registrar register करेगा इस company को. Now some privileges which are granted to Section 8 companies. They shall enjoy same privileges and obligations of a limited company. Limited company is basically a company limited by shares. A firm can become a member in Section 8 company, and it shall not alter the provisions of MOA or AOA except with previous approval of central government. If the Section 8 company wants to make any alteration to its memorandum or articles of association, it will have to obtain prior approval of the central government, and only then it can do so. If it wants to convert into any other company, it has to pass a special resolution at general meeting. Special resolution की जरूरत पड़ेगी. General meeting can be called by this company by giving a notice of 14 days than 21 clear days. Minimum number of directors का requirement, independent directors का requirement, all of this does not apply to a Section 8 company. They do not have to constitute any nomination and remuneration committee and shareholders relationship committee. So there are certain committees which have to be formed in different companies, about which you will learn at CA final level. But अभी के लिए just understand कि अलग-अलग committees बनाते हैं for different purposes. जैसे शेयर होल्डर्स रिलेशनशिप कमेटी हो गया, ये हो गया स्टेक होल्डर्स के साथ रिलेशनशिप मॉनिटर करने के लिए. Nomination remuneration committee is for the nomination and deciding upon the nomination and remuneration of the directors of the company. So ऐसे different committees कुछ companies को form करना पड़ता है, पर Section 8 company को ये सारी चीजें नहीं करने की जरूरत है. AGM, generally every company is required to hold an annual meeting, उसको AGM बोलते हैं. एजीएम का नोटिस 21 डेज का होता है, 21 क्लियर डेज का नोटिस होता है एजीएम का. और सेक्शन 8 कंपनी है तो 21 डेज की जगह सिर्फ 14 डेज का नोटिस दोगे तो भी चलेगा. There are requirements with respect to minimum number of directors, minimum number of independent directors in a company, which do not apply in case of a Section 8 company. Section 8 company है तो ये जो minimum number का requirement है वो comply करने की जरूरत नहीं है. And if a Section 8 company wants to convert itself into any other company, they can pass a special resolution approving that conversion, and they can convert. Now talking of the revocation of license. So reasons for revocation क्या होगा? When there's any contravention of conditions or requirements, or where the affairs of the company are conducted fraudulently, or there's any violation of object, or something has been done which is not in public interest. तो उस सिचुएशन में सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट क्या करेगा? लाइसेंस रिवोक कर लेगा. बट लाइसेंस रिवोक करने के पहले सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट विल गिव एन अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑफ बीइंग हर्ड. एक बार कंपनी का साइड भी सुन लेंगे, डायरेक्ट दोषी नहीं ठहराएंगे, एक बार we'll give them a chance to represent themselves, give them a chance to speak for themselves, और उसके बाद फिर सोचेंगे revocation के बारे में. So before revocation, central government will give an opportunity of being heard to the company. Now what will be the effect of revocation? They'll change the name of the company, change the status of the company. Central government may by order, if it is in public interest, direct that the company should be wound up or amalgamated with another company registered under this section, that is Section 8, and which has similar objectives after giving the company an opportunity of being heard. So 3 things can be done. Change the name, status of the company. Second is amalgamate the company with another company which has similar objectives. Third is order winding up of the company. So whatever is in public interest, central government वो वाला decision लेंगे. अभी अगर company का wind up हो रहा है, if the company is being wound up, and even after satisfying all the liabilities, there are still some assets which are left. Even after satisfaction of all the debts and liabilities, there are assets which are left with the company. Say company had assets worth ₹10 lakhs और liabilities जो थे वो सिर्फ 7 lakhs के थे. तो लायबिलिटीज पे ऑफ करने के बाद भी कंपनी के पास कुछ असेट्स बचेंगे, तो उन असेट्स का क्या किया जाए? So those assets may be transferred to another company which is registered under this section and which has similar objectives, depending on what the tribunal says, subject to the conditions as the tribunal would impose. Or these assets, they may be sold, और assets sell करके जो भी पैसा आता है वो पैसा insolvency and bankruptcy fund में जाएगा. So क्या होगा? In case there are surplus assets left, there's a surplus of assets left after satisfaction of all the debts and liabilities, these assets can either be transferred to another company, and this other company should be a company with similar objectives, section 8 company with similar objectives and as specified by the tribunal, या फिर the assets will be sold और जो भी proceeds आते हैं वो proceeds transfer हो जाएगी insolvency and bankruptcy fund में. Whatever are the proceeds which are received, these proceeds will be transferred to the insolvency and bankruptcy fund. And talking of penalty or punishment in case of contravention, so company अगर कुछ ऐसा contravention कर रही है तो उनके लिए fine होगा ranging from 10 lakhs to 1 crore. This is the fine for company. Directors का fine 25,000 to 25 lakhs. And whether affairs of the company were conducted fraudulently, then punishment under section 447. Section 447 talks about the punishment for fraud. So Companies Act में जहां पे भी ये term fraud आएगा वहां पे punishment under section 447 automatically आ जाएगा. So जहां पे भी wherever you will look at this term fraud being used under the entire Companies Act, we will come across this section 447, and we'll also have a look at section 447. We'll also do section 447 तभी नहीं बाद में. So with this we've now understood कि section 8 companies से related क्या-क्या provisions हैं. Any doubt, any questions? Have you all understood a section 8 company, a one person company? Yes. So let me quickly recapitulate whatever we have done today. So we started with the definitions. हमने समझा what is a government company, what is a small company, listed company, unlisted company. And then we've also understood holding subsidiary and associate company क्या होते हैं. हमने OPC and section 8 company in detail समझा. And we've also understood some basic definitions which are covered under the chapter. So now that we have covered types of companies and we've also completed a few basic definitions, now is the time when we start with the main thing, that is incorporation of company. Incorporation of company के बारे में हम समझेंगे. But we'll not start it today, don't worry. I am not going to start with incorporation right now, or not starting it with it today. We'll start with incorporation of companies tomorrow. जहाँ पे we'll start with the basics. What are the basic requirements for incorporation? Incorporation कैसे होता है? All the requirements with regard to incorporation, we'll cover them. We'll cover them tomorrow. So before we end the meeting, any questions, any doubts? You're free to ask. You're free to ask any doubts you have. No doubts. And doubts तो कभी होते ही नहीं है आप लोगों को. Anyways, I hope you've understood whatever we've discussed today. See, all the definitions, all the types of companies which we've done, they are very relevant for the classes. For the classes as and when we progress. So I'll not explain the meaning of holding subsidiary again. मैं वापस से नहीं समझाऊंगी क्योंकि मैंने एक बार आपको समझा दिया. So अगर कोई भी question है, when given a chance, please ask the question. No questions? Understood everything? अंडरस्टूड एवरीथिंग, ठीक है. सो कल मैं क्वेश्चंस लेके आती हूँ और देखती हूँ कितना समझ में आया और कितना समझ में नहीं आया. If that's the case. Okay, then let's end today's session here, and we'll start with incorporation of companies tomorrow.